Welcome to a special edition of the Orange Cactus Coffee Podcast, where coffee professional Scott Rao answers your questions. It's yes or no with Scott Rao.
Thanks for joining me, and thank you for joining us for episode 65 of the Orange Cactus Coffee Podcast, where, yes, once again, the Scott Rao is back to answer your questions. This one is about green bean storage. I know you're going to love it. Scott does an outstanding job, really awesome. Such an honor to have him on here answering questions for us. And again, if you have questions for Scott, send them to Jacob at orangecactuscoffee.com or Mike at orangecactuscoffee.com.
Yes or no with Scott Rao.
I have some questions about green bean storage. Is there any danger of rodent or insect infestation?
I honestly don't know much about rodent or insect problems related to green coffee storage. At least I've never had to deal with such problems. I doubt green coffee beans are all that appealing of a snack for most bugs and rats, and those critters probably haven't heard about the trend of consuming green coffee to lose weight, so I'm not too worried about it. If you are storing green coffee in vacuum-sealed or Grain Pro bags, and you should be, it should eliminate almost all concern about insects and rats. Beans stored in just burlap are susceptible to flavor damage and all sorts of changes on the voyage from the farm to your roastery. If you think about the typical loss of quality green suffers on the journey to you, the cost, as measured in cup quality, is far greater than the cost of buying green coffee sealed in Grain Pro bags. From that perspective, Grain Pro is a bargain. If the beans are properly dried and the moisture content and water activity are measured before sealing the beans in Grain Pro, the odds are very high the coffee will be great when you receive it, and the green will also age more gracefully while it is sealed.
How long can you store the green beans?
How long can you store green coffee? It depends on many factors. Coffee from some origins, such as Kenya, seem to age more slowly than others, such as Colombian. A Colombian may seem a little faded in about 4 months, while a Kenya may seem lively after a whole year. Coffee may age at about half the rate in Grain Pro bags as it does in burlap, and vacuum-sealed bags may help coffee last another 50% longer than it does in Grain Pro.
Are there any other concerns with storing green coffee beans, like possibly mold?
With any coffee, colder storage slows the aging process. At the extreme, freezing green in vacuum-sealed bags can slow the aging process so that the green seems fresh many years after harvest. George Howell has been pioneering the freezing of green coffee for many years, and when I've tasted coffee roasted by him that had been frozen for 6 years as green, I could not tell it was not fresh crop. If you want to taste roasted coffee that had been frozen as green for many years, check out George's website. He usually has some Kenya on offer that had been frozen for a few years. Just know that if you store your green coffee in a cold environment, whether frozen or not, it is important to allow the beans to warm slowly to room temperature before exposing them to room temperature air. And they also need to be room temperature before you roast them. Cold beans are a little harder to develop. Thanks for the question. Until next time.
Yes or no with Scott Rao.
You ready?
I believe so. Let's do this.
All right, sweet. What did you think of Scott's answer about green bean storage?
Green bean storage. This is such a good question because this is something I've been thinking about for me. Where do I store my green?
Yeah.
If I roast in the garage, should I keep the green in the garage?
Yeah.
Does it matter? Do I need to worry about rodents?
Yeah, it does. It does matter.
It does matter.
It sounds like your concern about rodents is unwarranted.
At least in Scott's experience, they haven't. They're not on the third wave train yet, and they're not.
They're not in on it.
They're not eating up that fresh Kenyan, getting that blueberries to the face.
They're not trying to get blueberries to the face.
Though I wouldn't completely rule it out that some type of rodent would like to get in there.
Yeah,
you know,
you don't want to find out
exactly
the hard way to find out that you found. Guess what? You found the insect or rodent that enjoys coffee.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Exactly.
You don't want to be that guy.
You don't. But I think Scott went somewhere where he found more value, and really where the true question is,
Yes.
don't worry about rodents. Not going to be your problem.
Not your main concern, bro.
Your main concern is how are you storing it? What is it being stored in? And is that preserving the freshness?
Yeah.
And I think that was key. The Grain Pro bags, everyone knows they're good, and they're much better. And if properly, like he said, harvested and allowed to dry and then put in the Grain Pro,
right.
When it comes to you, you're going to have a
Gotta
nice
set it
crop.
in the context. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like he goes and he answers. He says, look, even vacuum sealing, freezing, Grain Proing, it's not the end all be all. It's not going to solve your problem if you had previous. It's like any production chain.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Any supply chain. If it was bad at the beginning, if something hit it over here that caused it to lose flavor, lose freshness, rot, whatever.
Yeah.
You're not going to make up for it by vacuum sealing it.
Well, what are you preserving?
Exactly.
Is preservation of freshness, preservation of a bad process,
Exactly. That's right. You're going to preserve all the badness that was there.
Yeah.
But he does give us kind of a little bit of a hierarchy there, right?
Yes.
Burlap,
Yep.
Grain Pro,
Yep.
vacuum sealed, and vacuum sealed and freeze.
Exactly.
Kind of the hierarchy there.
How far you want to take
storage.
it. And I think it could be kind of indicative or based on if you've got a really good bean and you know you're not going to get through it in time and you want to preserve it, vacuum seal and freeze it.
Yeah.
And we know some of our listeners, Manny G's even messed around with that a little bit. With
Manny G does it pre
good
and
results.
post roast.
Yeah, good results.
Vacuum seal, and the vacuum sealing is key. You got to get that oxygen out of there.
Yes. Exactly. And so you prevent moisture from building up too.
It makes a lot of sense because coffee's not the only thing that, if you freeze, you have to let thaw and come back to room temperature before you throw it on the grill.
Yeah, just throw a frozen bean in your roaster.
Yeah.
You wouldn't. You would.
You wouldn't
frozen a fro.
You wouldn't throw a frozen steak on the grill, would you?
Some would.
No, you wouldn't throw a frozen steak.
You wouldn't
on the
want
grill.
to.
You wouldn't want to.
You wouldn't even want to throw a cold steak.
It makes sense.
You let it come up to room temperature.
Yeah.
And
just treat it. It baffles the mind almost that, we want to do all these crazy different things when you get these beans from all over the world and put them in special bags, but then you want to treat them indifferently, like from freezing and just throw it in there.
Yeah,
fine.
and just not giving consideration. And
no, you got to consider each and every step and just be reasonable about it. Wow, I am really good today.
You're doing great. This is making me feel wonderful. But I think lastly, too, one of the things he pointed out that I wasn't aware of, that particular regions have greater longevity for some reason.
Yeah.
Kenyans over Colombian. And that ties in with something that I've heard Tim say, that sometimes, I think he either said Colombia or Guatemala, that depending on how quickly they can get it to them, it's already got the woody, stale taste. So I've heard it elsewhere too.
Wow.
But crazy. I didn't realize, that's interesting that a Kenyan, he thinks properly stored with maybe a Grain Pro or vacuum sealed will last a year.
Yeah.
And the other one's maybe 3-4 months.
Yeah.
So keep that in mind when you're buying your green. How quickly are you going to go through it? Where is it from?
And are you prepared to handle it once it gets to you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And we'll link to George Howell. We'll also, a site that Scott mentioned, we'll link, of course, to Scott's site. And we will also link out to Grain Pro bags, and maybe I'll try and find some sort of vacuum seal or something. Just
some resources.
Get you hunting going in the right place.
Get you going.
All right. Thank you so much, Scott.
Appreciate it.
For taking the time to answer questions. And for those of you listening, hit us up.
Let us know.
Hit us up with some questions. You got questions for Scott, and we'll pass them on over to him.
Absolutely. Thank you.
And we out.
Later.
We out indeed. You can find show notes at orangecactuscoffee.com/episode 65. And I did find all those links that we wanted to link out to. So those are in the show notes. Hope you enjoyed it. Thanks for listening.